After Kevin defeated Nolan Hill and his men, he spent his days visiting Dalton at the hospital. He worked tirelessly throughout each night trying to make a restoration pill to help him heal from his injuries. The pill was incredibly bitter, but Dalton couldn't drink any water until the medicine had been absorbed into his body. "That's fine. He'll be able to eat soon," Kevin said to Miranda with a smile. According to his research, the biggest effect of the restoration pill was to reconnect bones and tendons. The growth in his connective tissue would be generated starting at the DNA level. It was ideal for Dalton's current condition. After a few minutes, Dalton's expression suddenly became strange, and then he sat up in his bed. "Dalton, you're..." Miranda covered her mouth in surprise and looked at her husband in disbelief. The doctor had assured Miranda that her husband's tendons couldn't be connected again, even with surgery. So Miranda had been sitting by her husband's bedside for the past few days praying for a miracle. When Kevin gave him the restoration pill, she finally had some hope.
"Honey, my hands and feet are tingling. I think it's working," Dalton said as he started to move them ever so slightly. "Will I really be healed?" Dalton asked in disbelief as he looked at his friend. "Kevin, this pill you gave me is like magic. I think it's going to work."
"You were injured because of me. Did you think I wouldn't move heaven and earth to help you?" Kevin reassured him.
"There's no need for brothers to thank each other, but you know how grateful I am," Dalton said very sincerely.
Miranda looked at her husband and was afraid that it would all turn out to be a dream. She couldn't stop crying. With all she knew about Dalton's condition, this couldn't possibly be real. Even the best medical specialist didn't know how to help him. How could he be recovering simply because of Kevin's medicinal pill?
"Kevin, we should go celebrate," Dalton said excitedly.
"First, you need to recover a little bit more. It'll take some time for you to get back full use of your arms and legs," Kevin explained. "But I guarantee that your physical therapy will go by pretty quickly." Miranda agreed. "Yes, we should schedule that right away. But first we should go visit your grandfather. He's been so worried about you for the past few days that he hasn't been able to eat or drink."
Okay. Let's go to Grandpa's and toast Kevin," Dalton said excitedly.
Kevin and Miranda looked at each other when they heard him say this. They both shook their heads helplessly. By 6 o'clock in the evening, they'd arrived at the Steele family's mansion. Norman Steele sat at the head of the table. Dalton was temporarily in a wheelchair until he could walk without assistance. Kevin sat next to him, and Dalton's cousins were also at the table. One of them was Rain Steele and the other was Blanca. They had decided to hurry back to the mansion to see Dalton once they'd heard that he was out of the hospital. They were both dressed in beautiful outfits, but when they saw Kevin, they didn't seem very happy. For one thing, Rain and Blanca both knew that their cousin had been injured because of Kevin. They took an instant dislike to him and didn't like the way he was dressed either. They didn't understand how their cousin had become such good friends with someone like this. But Kevin, who was used to being looked down upon by others, didn't care at all. He just kept drinking and chatting with Dalton and his grandfather. "I'm sure you'll be completely recovered soon, my boy," Norman said with a smile. "And your timing couldn't be better. It just so happens that the Chicago School for the Natural Healing Arts will open in just a few days. I want you to go there with your cousins." Norman had always had high expectations for Dalton, and he sincerely believed in his grandson's talent. As long as he got into the healing arts school, he would definitely surpass his peers, and in the future, he would be able to lead the Steele family to great success. On top of that, if Dalton got recognition by the school's directors, then the entire Steele family would benefit from it.
"Grandpa, if I go there, what will happen to the family business?" Dalton asked worriedly.
He knew that his grandfather had been retired for many years. It would be impossible for Dalton to handle the family's business and go to school at the same time. "Don't worry about it. Miranda can take care of that. She still has some things to learn, but I can help her keep up with that," Norman said casually. Dalton nodded his head in agreement. His grandfather was very highly respected in Chicago, and as long as he was around for guidance, they would be okay.
"Kevin, do you want to join me?" Dalton suddenly asked.
"Are you kidding? I wouldn't miss it for the world," Kevin said with a smile. Not only did he plan to enter the school for healing arts, but he was also going to steal something from them for the Alliance. Just then, Rain blurted out, "Well, not everyone can qualify to get in. Do you have any connections?"
"What are you talking about?" Dalton replied unhappily.
He couldn't bear to see anyone looking down on Kevin, even if it was his cousin. "Dalton, why are you helping outsiders?" Rain pouted as she looked at Miranda and asked her, "Are you going to let him bully me?" "I'm not worried about that. Your cousin and Kevin have been very good friends for a long time," Miranda responded helplessly. "I don't care about that. Just look at how tattered his clothes are. Even if he got into the school, he'd only be considered an ordinary student. I'll bet they'd drop him in less than a year," Rain declared. Just yesterday, the School for the Healing Arts had announced its list of rules. 2 of them were to be followed very strictly. Just yesterday, the School for the Healing Arts had announced its list of rules. 2 of them were to be followed very strictly. The first was that applicants had to belong to a prestigious Chicago family. Moreover, each family could only present 3 applicants. This wasn't to discriminate against the poor. It was because the process of development through herbal medicine was very expensive. The ingredients and equipment alone were extremely costly, and ordinary people simply couldn't afford them. The second rule was that the school was a 4-year program of intensive study. Every year there would be a final exam which consisted of various projects. Some of the final projects were to be done in groups, and others were based on individual work. If someone didn't complete the final exam and do well on it, they would be dismissed from the program.
"You can get in, can't you, Kevin?" Dalton asked worriedly.
"No problem, my friend. I promise I'll be there with you," Kevin said confidently. He just needed to ask Miss Wilson to use Williams Media to give him a name, so that wouldn't be an issue. As for Rain's mockery, he didn't take it to heart at all.
"All right, I'll see you there,"
Dalton said as he slowly raised his wine glass and clinked it with Kevin's. He still had some difficulty with his movements, but he was feeling a lot better. "By the way, Dalton, I have something for you," Kevin announced as he reached into his pocket and pulled out an herbal pill. Norman Steele was shocked and asked him, "Kevin, have you been training as an apothecary?" Kevin didn't realize that Dalton's grandfather would be so perceptive. He was still trying to keep his training with the Night King a secret. "I just dabble in it," Kevin said modestly. Everyone at the table gasped when they heard this, especially Norman, who was very impressed. He knew that being an apothecary was an extremely difficult thing. Not only did it require talent, but it also demanded a large amount of money, especially if you were trying to develop your own power at the same time. But the effort could also bring unexpected benefits. It wasn't just your own strength that you could develop. The most important thing was the effect on someone's lifespan from the changes that the herbal concoctions brought about, beyond the cellular level and even down to DNA repair. With constant maintenance, there was no telling how long someone could live. Norman couldn't believe that Kevin had reached this kind of level at such an early age. He wondered what he might be able to achieve in the future. "It seems like Dalton has really made a good friend. If our family can align with him and get his protection, we'll definitely thrive," Norman thought to himself.
"Not bad, Kevin. I had no idea you'd made such progress. Why didn't you tell me?" Dalton exclaimed after recovering from his shock.
"Well, you never asked me before," Kevin said nonchalantly. Dalton's cousin Rain was so embarrassed that she wished she could run out of the room. She'd been trying for years to improve her mind and body with training in herbal remedies, but she knew that she would never be able to reach Kevin's level, even if she kept at it for the rest of her life. She realized that she shouldn't have been ridiculing him. Just as Norman was about to raise his glass, Kevin suddenly patted Dalton on the shoulder. "Dalton, take this pill," Kevin said as he handed him the power pill that he just pulled out of his pocket.
"It's not another restoration pill, is it? I still haven't gotten the taste out of my mouth,"
Dalton asked him cautiously. Before Kevin could respond, Blanca interrupted him. "Don't take it, Dalton. He may be an apothecary, but just look at how he's dressed. He can't possibly have any skill." As soon as she finished speaking, her grandfather scolded her. "Shut up, Blanca. You have no idea what you're talking about." Norman had had a lot of life experience and saw qualities in Kevin that his granddaughter didn't. He could tell that Kevin was the kind of person who just didn't care about wealth. Otherwise, Kevin would have used his abilities to worm his way into a lot of rich families just for the money. "This might be a great opportunity for us," Norman thought as he looked at Kevin.
"So, Kevin, what the hell is this thing?" Dalton asked.
"If you don't want to take it, that's okay. I'm sure I could sell it for a few bucks," Kevin said as he reached out to take back the power pill. "Hold on. I wonder if you wouldn't mind letting me take a look at it," Norman asked as he looked at the pill excitedly. "Be my guest," Kevin said very respectfully. He took the power pill and put it in Norman's hand. After looking at it carefully for a few minutes, Norman suddenly got very enthusiastic. His grandchildren could see that his hand was starting to tremble a little. They were surprised to see this sort of behavior from their grandfather. He was usually very calm and composed. "Kevin, is this really a power pill?" Norman stammered. "I thought you might know what it is," Kevin complimented him. "You really think that's a power pill?" Blanca asked in astonishment. "I'm sure of it," Norman said excitedly. He could barely contain himself. Everyone who was interested in using medicinal herbs for self-improvement knew one thing. For some unknown reason, many years ago the apothecaries had gradually disappeared. Because of this, vast amounts of knowledge and many miraculous pills had been lost for all time. Among them was the most famous one, the power pill. An herbal med like this could help someone to make great strides in their development. But the current pills weren't exactly like the ones that had been lost with the disappearance of the apothecaries. They were all created by imitating what little was known about the original power pill. Consequently, the medicinal properties of the pills could vary greatly. Otherwise, the pill that the old gentleman had bought at the Pearl family auction could have gotten even more money. After taking a deep breath, Norman calmed down a bit and turned to Kevin, saying, "I can never thank you enough for your kindness to our family." "You're too generous, sir. Since I consider Dalton to be like a brother to me, I naturally should share everything with him, both the good and the bad. A simple power pill is no big deal," Kevin replied casually. By now, making a power pill was a piece of cake for Kevin. He'd have made more of them, but he didn't have as much free time lately. "Dalton sure is lucky to have a brother like you," Norman commented as he handed the pill to his grandson. "Take it right away. Don't disappoint your friend."
"No, I think you should take the pill, Grandpa. You haven't made any progress in years. This will definitely help you more than me, especially with all the extra work you'll have while I'm at school," Dalton offered. "Besides, I'll be at the Healing Art School soon. I'll definitely come across a lot of pills once I'm there. Please, take it, Grandpa," Dalton continued to persuade him. "After all, you're the key to keeping our family on top. We need you to be at your best when dealing with our competitors."
But Dalton wasn't just worried about that. He knew that his grandfather was getting older and the power pill could help him regain some of his health so that he could be around for many more years to come. Norman pretended to be angry and retorted, "Are you trying to disobey your grandfather?" Of course he wanted to try the power pill. With all that it could do, who wouldn't want it? But Norman still hesitated. Even though he could really use the boost, Dalton was the future of the Steele family, and he needed to develop himself even more, especially while recovering from his injuries. So he finally decided to give the pill to his grandson.
"I'm not trying to be rude, Grandpa. I'm just thinking about your health. Go ahead. You should take it,"
Dalton insisted as he shook his head. As he watched the grandfather and grandson passing the pill back and forth, Kevin smiled happily and said to them, "I think there's only one solution for your problem." The room fell silent as they all looked at him, wondering what he would do. Kevin reached into the pocket of his jacket, pulled out another power pill, and held out his hand to Dalton and Norman. Kevin offered Dalton a power pill, but his friend thought that his grandfather needed it more. They kept passing it back and forth, each insisting that the other take it. Finally, Kevin decided that it would be better if both of them took the pill, so he reached into his pocket and pulled out another one. "This should settle your argument," Kevin informed them as he handed a second power pill to Dalton. Dalton and his grandfather didn't have to be told twice. They each took their power pill and swallowed it right away. Kevin told them to sit for a while and let the pill take effect. Some people even meditate so they can relax during the process. Kevin sat back in his chair and slowly sipped the wine. He and Miranda chatted a little to pass the time. Suddenly, Rain and Blanca stood up and walked around the table to Kevin. "I'm sorry, Kevin. Blanca and I were wrong about you. I hope you won't hold it against us." Rain apologized sincerely. "You don't need to apologize. Didn't bother me," Kevin replied as he put his wine glass on the table. He knew exactly why they were suddenly being so nice to him. "Unfortunately, I don't have another one on me. When I have the time, I'll make a pill for each of you," Kevin replied to them. But actually, he didn't want to give either of them a power pill. Kevin had moved beyond the point where a power pill could help him, but it still wasn't something that should be given away without considering what someone may do with it. When he heard Dalton's cousins insulting him earlier, it didn't bother him, but he thought they might misuse their power to take revenge on someone for a tiny offense. "Thank you, Kevin." Rain and Blanca thanked him profusely. They had no idea that Kevin had no intention of giving them one of his pills. However, Miranda saw right through and understood what Kevin was thinking, but she didn't say anything. She just sat there quietly sipping her coffee. After Dalton's cousins and his wife left, his grandfather finally came back into the room. Norman talked with Kevin for a few minutes and then went up to his bedroom. That left Kevin alone in the living room with Dalton. Norman was fine with his grandson hanging around with Kevin. If the Steele family could be connected with such a powerful person, it could definitely help them in the future. When it was almost 11 o'clock, Dalton finally felt better and woke up from his relaxation. "Not bad, Dalton. You look better already. How do you feel?" Kevin asked him.
"I never thought that a power pill could have such an immediate effect,"
Dalton confided as he started to open and close his hand. Even though he still hadn't completely recovered from his injuries, he could tell that his body was much stronger than before. With a solemn expression on his face, he exclaimed,
"I can see why people are willing to pay so much for this."
Just remember that the power pill works best when someone is at a lower level in their training. For example, if I took one now, I wouldn't feel it at all, Kevin explained. The reason why you feel so much better isn't only because of medicinal pills, it's also because you've been doing so much over the years and you are ready for it.
"Let's change the subject. Have another glass of wine with me," Dalton suggested as he raised his wine glass to toast Kevin.
"Okay, my friend," Kevin answered him, "but just a little. You're still regaining your strength." The two of them talked for a few hours before they finally fell asleep. When Kevin woke up the next day, he saw that Dalton was still on the couch, sleeping like a log. Kevin went downstairs and had a light breakfast with Norman, and then he left for Williams Media. "Has anything unusual happened in the company lately?" Kevin asked Miss Wilson as he pored over the materials that she'd prepared for him. "Everything's going well. Ever since you took care of the problem with Vito Booker, Brittany and Charity were offered a lot of advertising contracts. Now they're our top 2 clients in the city," she reported cheerfully. "That's great news," Kevin responded. After a moment, he added, "I wonder if you could help me with something. Could you have a few large bowls delivered to my office?" "Yes, sir," Miss Wilson replied as she left the room. Then Kevin called Mitchell, Cook, and his other friends to ask them to come to his office right away. They hadn't seen each other since they'd gotten back from the Williams family mansion. But his main reason for inviting them was that he wanted to take control of as much of Chicago as he could. Cook and the others would be a huge help to him in the future, so he needed to get them on board with his plan. An hour later, with some ingredients he'd brought along with him and using the bowls Miss Wilson had found for him, Kevin had prepared 9 pills. He finished just before his friends walked in. "We hurried over as soon as you called. Is there something important that you need to tell us?" Adriana inquired. "Please have a seat first," Kevin replied as he gestured for them to sit down on the sofa along the wall. Then he smiled as he took the pills in his hand. "Have you all recovered from your injuries yet?" Kevin asked them as his eyes swept across their faces. "I've been busy ever since I got back, so I never had a chance to visit with you guys."
"Oh, we got over that a long time ago," Cook replied casually.
Kevin decided to get right to the point. "I called you guys over here to find out if you're interested in joining me on a path of personal growth that can lead to much greater things." Cook and the others looked at each other when they heard him say this. Finally, Emo Squire answered, "I think you already know we'll stand with you no matter what, but why are you suddenly asking us now?" "I'm glad to hear that," Kevin replied very emotionally. "I have something for you. Do you know what these are?" Kevin opened his hand to show them the pills that he'd just manufactured. "Are those power pills?" Gilbert asked him curiously. "That's right, Gilbert," Kevin admitted openly. "But I only have one request. You must never give them to others, and you can't tell anyone that I gave them to you." They all stood up from the sofa, fascinated by the pills that they saw in Kevin's hand. They were all very excited because of the rumors about what had happened at the Pearl family auction house a while ago. Just one of these herbal pills was worth a fortune. "Each of you can have 2 of them," Kevin announced. Then he placed one in Cook's hand and let them divide the rest. After they had each taken a power pill, they sat back down in the comfortable sofa to let the medicine take effect. For the next hour, Kevin laid out his plan in detail. Cook and the others were chomping at the bit to get started. When it was a little past 5 o'clock, the group left the office. But now, with Kevin's help, they had all become even more powerful than they were before. Kevin stood at his office window and looked out at the streets below, thinking to himself, "We've finally taken the first step in taking back this city." The next day went by very quickly. With great fanfare and with all of the city's most important political figures in attendance, the Chicago School for the Natural Healing Arts officially opened its doors. More than 1,000 people had already gathered on the campus. The new students were all checking each other out, trying to figure out who would be the most popular. Some of them were wondering what the ratio of male to female students was. The serious students were simply excited to get started on their training. Suddenly, there was a lot of commotion in the crowd. A bright red pulled up. This got everyone talking. Some of them knew that the car cost at least $2 million and could reach 60 miles per hour in less than 3 seconds. They were all wondering who would step out. Sherwin, Blair, and Officer Emmett got out of the car with big smiles on their faces. Blair blew a kiss to a group of young women, which got him a lot of looks, including a disappointed frown from his fiancée, Officer Emmett. He enjoyed being the center of attention, so he'd bought the car just the evening before. Blair was putting on quite a show. But before he had a chance to revel in all the attention, someone else caused an even bigger stir in the crowd. Under the escort of 2 flying spurs, 5 screeched to a stop in front of the main building. A handsome man got out of the car and attracted way more attention than Blair had. Just about everyone knew that it was Wade Bennett. He was a famous race car driver, and the 3 cars that had just pulled up were worth more than some people earn in a lifetime if they're lucky. While everyone was admiring his fancy rides, a string of black sedans started pouring onto the campus. Fortunately, the school had decided to open in the suburbs instead of downtown, or the traffic congestion would have been a nightmare, even by Chicago standards. Soon, a large group of bodyguards wearing black suits stepped out of the cars and started to gesture to the crowd to clear a path. Everyone was wondering who was about to arrive. After all, the students were all from rich families, but this was on another level. While they were all trying to guess who it would be, a bright green rumbled to a stop at the space that the bodyguards had opened up. A few of them quickly walked over and opened the door, and a beautiful woman in a fiery red dress stepped out gracefully. The students couldn't believe they'd be going to the same school as Penny Sutherland. She was from the richest family in the Midwest. The Sutherland family had businesses and factories in every city for hundreds of miles. They also had quite an impressive history in both business and politics. This wasn't surprising because they'd been working on their personal development for years. It made sense for them to send one of their children to the school so they could keep their competitive edge. Suddenly, everyone heard a loud noise in the sky. They all turned and looked up to see 3 private helicopters flying in formation. They landed right in the middle of the soccer field, and when they shut off their engines, a group of new students stepped out. It was an impressive sight. Then a distinguished-looking middle-aged man stepped up to the podium that had been placed on the steps of the main building. He tapped the microphone and spoke to the new class.
"First of all, I'm very happy that you've all chosen to begin your studies at our fine school. Please keep in mind that we have strict rules on behavior, and if they aren't followed to the letter, you risk expulsion."
After he finished speaking, some school officials went up to the students who had arrived by helicopter and escorted them off the campus. Next, the students were divided into 4 groups that split up to the north, south, east, and west. They had all received text informing them of their group assignments and a link to their schedule. As they were all filing into the buildings for their orientation classes, Kevin pulled up and parked in a visitor spot.
Kevin, you're the slowest driver I've ever seen. How can you get someplace late?
Dalton teased Kevin. Why don't you drive next time? Anyway, it was your idea to take the Dan Ryan Expressway, Kevin snapped back. Of course they'd been stuck in a traffic jam on the way there. A ride that should have taken a little over half an hour dragged on for almost 2 hours. The school had been granted a piece of land in the suburbs many years before, but it had taken a long time for the construction to be completed. That's a lot of people, Kevin commented as he looked at the enormous crowd filing into the buildings. He was tempted to turn around and leave.
Damn it, look at them all. I think they've already divided everyone up into classes. Come on, Kevin, let's go take a look,
Dalton said as he patted his buddy on the shoulder. Just look at them all squeezing in there. Why don't we wait until they're all gone before we go and take a look? Kevin had no intention of going in right now. Then he added, anyway, the first day is just going to be orientation. Classes don't officially start until tomorrow.
Come on, let's join them,
Dalton said as he slowly got out of the car. His tendons had already healed enough so that he was able to get by with just a cane. He took Kevin by the elbow and headed towards the crowd. When they got closer, they checked their smartphones and found out which way they needed to go first. After standing in line for a long time, Kevin and Dalton finally got to see the inside of a classroom.
Hey, Kevin, it looks like we're in the same classes,
Dalton said happily as he slapped him on the back. It's going to be a lot of work. Let's see how excited you are by the end of the semester, Kevin said calmly. What Kevin didn't tell his friend that he was picking up on a lot of very strong vibes, and it really had him concerned. When Kevin and Dalton arrived on campus for orientation at the Chicago School of the Healing Arts, they were a little late. They hurried over to their assigned building to join the rest of their orientation group. Thanks to Kevin's restoration pill, Dalton was recovering well, but he was still a little unsteady on his feet. As Kevin looked around at all the staff members, he wondered, how the hell am I supposed to steal that formula when there are so many powerful people here? Could the director be deliberately setting me up? Just then, a familiar voice drew his attention away from his distressing thoughts. It was Lily walking up to him and calling his name excitedly. I knew you'd be here, Lily exclaimed as she took Kevin by the arm and whispered in his ear. Kevin, please don't be angry with me. I know I messed up, but I promise I'll never do anything like that again. Kevin didn't answer her. He just gave her a cold stare.
Hi, Lily. I didn't expect you to be here, too. What a happy coincidence, Dalton remarked as he gave her a big smile.
Dalton Steele? Are you feeling better now? Lily asked him in shock. The last time she'd laid eyes on Dalton was after Nolan and his men had beaten him up. She'd never expected that he would recover so quickly.
I'm doing a lot better. With the help of the pill Kevin gave me, I'm almost fully recovered,
Dalton replied as he flexed his arms. Not only did the restoration pill cure his injuries to his arms and legs, it also helped heal all his scars. I'm so sorry, Dalton. If it wasn't for me, you wouldn't have ended up in the hospital. Lily lowered her head and said guiltily.
That's okay. No harm done. Look, I'm back on my feet again, Dalton explained to her. Besides, how could I let my best friend's wife be bullied and not step in, even if it means risking my life?
Lily smiled faintly when she heard him say that, but it upset her to no end to see that Kevin was still ignoring her. Lily had been thinking about a lot of things over the past few days. First of all, how did Kevin suddenly know so many important and powerful people? And how was he able to bring in so many men to help him fight Nolan's bodyguards at the hotel the other day? Plus, she still didn't know why Kevin had been arrested by the police. None of it made any sense to her at all. Please don't be upset with me, Kevin. How can I convince you that I won't make a mistake like this ever again? Lily pleaded awkwardly. Kevin pulled his arm away from her. He was really getting angry now. Ever since his family had rejected him a few years ago, Kevin hadn't had any real friends. Everyone thought that he was just a freeloader living off the Jones family's money, and they all looked down on him. Kevin was starting to think that friendship was bullcrap, but ever since he met Dalton, he knew the true meaning of the word brother. However, because of Lily, he'd almost lost his brother, so Kevin really didn't know how to let go of it and move on. Dalton could see that Kevin wasn't happy, so he tactfully stepped aside to give the two of them some privacy. Suddenly, they heard someone nearby mocking Kevin loudly. "Say, isn't that the bum who's been mooching off the Jones family?" Sherwin Blair walked up, holding hands with Officer Emmett. He said to Kevin disdainfully, "Of course. Now you can't sponge off them anymore, can you? Even your wife has been kicked out of the family. How will you ever survive?" "That's enough, Sherwin. I told you not to start any trouble with Kevin." Officer Emmett snapped at him. As a member of the Chicago Police Department, she naturally couldn't attend the school, but she happened to have the day off, so she decided to visit the campus with her fiancé. "I can't believe you're still standing up for this trash, Kelly." "Anyway, I'm only telling the truth," Blair said loudly. "This guy is a complete waste of space. I really don't know how he was ever accepted here." Sherwin's insulting comments attracted the attention of the people around them. By now, a lot of them had already recognized Kevin. After all, he could be considered a kind of celebrity among the Chicago elite because of his reputation in the Jones family over the past few years. They all started to whisper to each other. Some of them were wondering how someone like him could have gotten into the elite program. Others thought it would be embarrassing to be in the same class as Kevin. What they couldn't figure out was how he had become such good friends with Dalton Steele. Kevin could hear what they were saying and it ticked him off a little, but he managed to keep his composure and simply replied, "Well, I'm here to go to school. Do you have a problem with that? Kick me out if you think you can do it. Otherwise, just shut your face." "You're so low class. What makes you think you can talk to me like that?" Blair snarled at him. "What's wrong? I know you didn't think much of me, but now we're in the same class, so I guess that means you're low class too," Kevin said with a sneer. "I didn't know you could express yourself so well. But if you think you and I are equals in any way, then—" Blair was about to finish what he was saying when Dalton interrupted him. "Are you done yet?" Dalton barked as he gave him a hard slap on the face. The onlookers were shocked to see their argument turn physical. Blair didn't dare to take Dalton on head-to-head. He stammered, "But Dalton, I wasn't talking to you. I was talking about that scum Kevin." "Don't you know that Kevin is my brother?" Dalton bellowed as he shoved Blair in the chest, knocking him to the ground. The students who were standing around them didn't say a word. After all, Dalton had a nasty reputation and they didn't want to get on his bad side. Seeing that Dalton was about to hit Blair again, Kevin stopped him and reminded him, "Let's not get carried away, Dalton. It's beneath our dignity to fight with someone like this. Let's just teach him a little lesson." Just as Blair was getting up again, Kevin gave him a swift kick in the butt, which sent him rolling over and over on the floor. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blair. I don't know why my leg keeps cramping up lately," Kevin taunted him. "You're playing with fire," Blair growled as he gritted his teeth and glared at Kevin. "What are you gonna do? Run home and tell your mommy?" Dalton jeered as he stared him down. Officer Emmett couldn't take any more of this. She stepped forward and put Blair behind her. Then she warned, "Kevin and Dalton, that's enough. Is that how you behave in a place like this?" Very few people knew that Officer Emmett and Dalton were actually mortal enemies. As far as she was concerned, Dalton was evil incarnate. He'd caused a lot of trouble in Chicago over the years. Since Officer Emmett was part of the crime task force, she dealt with Dalton far more than she wanted. However, Dalton was too smart and he never let Officer Emmett catch him in the act. She was always a step behind him. "Officer Emmett, as a police officer, you shouldn't be biased just because Sherwin's your fiancé. You just saw what happened with your own eyes. Tell me, who was it that went too far?" Kevin retorted unhappily. Kevin knew that Officer Emmett owed him a favor for what he had done to help her infiltrate the Myriads, and he'd assisted her in other ways too, so she knew what kind of man he was. "All right, for Kevin's sake, I won't argue with you right now. If you stay out of my way, I'll stay out of yours," Dalton conceded, but he still gave her a dirty look. Blair covered his face with his hand and struggled to come back to his senses. Dalton's slap had almost knocked him out. Just as Officer Emmett was about to say something else, Kevin had already walked away with Dalton. The school's alert system had just sent out a text to let all the students know that they had to be in their assigned classrooms within 5 minutes. On the way to class, Kevin stopped in the men's room, so he was a minute or so behind Dalton. When he entered the class, Dalton stood up and waved at him to take a seat next to him. "Why are we sitting in the last row?" Kevin asked with a slight frown.
This school's main purpose isn't really book learning. What's more important is talent and seizing opportunities, so there's no point in sitting in the front row, Dalton answered as he put his foot up on the seat in front of him. Just then there was a murmur as the students saw a very striking young woman walk into the room. As they all watched in fascination, Penny Sutherland sat down in the back row. "Geez, Dalton, now I know why you sat way back here," Kevin ribbed his friend as he stared at Penny, who had found a spot just a few seats away from them. "I have my moments," Dalton answered with a broad smile.
Dalton was usually careless, but sometimes he could do unexpected things that worked out for him. When he saw that Penny would be in the same class as him, he knew that someone like her wouldn't be interested in interacting with the other students. He figured she'd sit in the last 2 rows. "Smart, Dalton, smart," Kevin remarked as he gave him a thumbs up. Just as the students settled in, the professor walked into the classroom. From her appearance, she looked to be around 27 or 28 years old, and she looked very unapproachable. "Hello, everyone. I'm Professor Grace Murdock, and I'll be your instructor for the next 4 years," she announced somberly. "The first thing that we need to do is to discuss our rules. There are a lot of very rich students here from some of the city's most prestigious families. That doesn't matter anymore. From now on, you'll only have one identity, and that is the student of the School for the Healing Arts. If you forget that and fall out of line, I'll make sure that you're expelled," she informed them in a very serious tone. "What do you mean by fall out of line?" one of the students blurted out. "If I think my teacher is very good looking, I can ask her out, can't I?" Some people from wealthy families are used to saying things without consequences. This guy still hadn't learned when to keep his mouth closed. Suddenly, Professor Murdock slammed her book on the desk, and the entire classroom suddenly fell silent. With a very sour look on her face, Professor Murdock walked over to the person who had disrupted the class and asked him, "What's your name?" "My name is Chase Rogers. Are you free on Friday night?" The young man answered confidently. "The heir to the Chicago hotel chain?" Professor Murdock asked coldly. "That's me," Chase admitted proudly. The Rogers family wasn't quite as well off as the Steele family, but they still were considered to be very wealthy. "Well, Mr. Rogers, you are hereby officially expelled from the School for the Healing Arts," Professor Murdock informed him in a very dignified tone. "Why are you doing this?" Chase was stunned. "You're a smart aleck and you're disrespectful. Now you can serve as an example to your former classmates," Professor Murdock explained to him. She didn't have the time or the inclination to deal with nonsense like this. She took Chase's backpack, opened the window, and threw it out. Everyone was stunned when they saw her do this. The look on his face was priceless. Then she turned to Chase and told him, "You can pick up your backpack on your way off campus." Professor Murdock's expression didn't change at all. She returned to the podium and said to everyone very sternly, "If you listen to me, you'll do well here. I will not put up with any disruptions or lack of respect, either for me or your fellow students. Otherwise, I guarantee that you won't be here very long." Nobody said a word. They just sat quietly, afraid to draw any attention to themselves. "There's one more thing," she continued as she looked from one side of the classroom to the other. "There was a fight on campus a little while ago. That wasn't the best decision for the first day of school." Everyone kept quiet, but they couldn't help looking over at Dalton and Kevin in the back row. They knew exactly what Professor Murdock was talking about. Kevin looked down at his desk, hoping that she wouldn't notice him, but Dalton remained calm. He even looked around as if he didn't know who the professor was talking about. Everyone was wondering what Professor Murdock would say next.
Hi, Kevin here. If you're wondering what happens next, then stay tuned on the Pocket FM Universe channel for more episodes.